Welcome back to the Family Farms Podcast. I'm Justin. I'm joined, as always, by my lovely wife, Labrie.
Hey!
This week, we want to talk about the shocking soil test results that we received and how we plan to fix our soil. But first, we want to talk a little bit about what's been going on the farm this week.
Lots of sickness.
Yes.
This has been a week.
The week wasn't as bad as we thought it was going to be, because just from being tired. Last week, we talked about how Oliver was sick, which was kind of a drain. Well, he was just starting to get sick by the time we recorded that podcast, because we recorded on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And so he was just starting to show the first symptoms, and we thought it wouldn't last very long.
Nope, we were wrong. That lasted through Friday night. In the middle of the night somewhere, the fever finally broke, and he's still recovering. He's very emotional.
Yeah, still whiny, still wants to be coddled like he's sick, but he's doing pretty good. And then, like I said, I was working overtime last week, and I'm actually working overtime again this week, but it wasn't as draining as we thought it would be. Yeah. So that was good. But we did actually still accomplish some things on the farm. Bree actually was able to cook 4 pumpkin pies completely from scratch.
Yep. I roasted the pumpkin myself to make the puree and made the pie crust, everything. It was all from scratch, and they were delicious because one of those pies were for us.
Yes. Yeah.
And then the 3 other were for our church.
So we have a coffee shop at church, and all the proceeds go to mission work. So we wanted to donate pies as a way of kind of like donating to missions. But it's also nice because you're making pies, excuse me, for just a few dollars each. And I think by the end of it, it would have been like $56 or something worth of pie that gets sold. So that's all in all a pretty good investment, you know.
Yeah. And they got a lot of compliments from what I'm told and stuff. And anytime we ever want to do it again, they are more than happy to receive pies.
Which I don't know if we'll be able to do pumpkin pies again. At least not seasonally. I mean, right now we're getting close to Easter, so it makes sense to do pumpkin pies.
Easter?
Wow.
Maybe this last week has been a little more draining than you thought.
Yeah, I didn't realize. No. But we're getting close to Thanksgiving right now, which is the typical season to have pumpkin pies. But with everything that we've got coming up after this, I don't know that we'll be able to dedicate that much time to making pies again, because it's not an easy process. No. Especially when you're going completely from scratch.
Yeah, like roasting the pumpkin itself is at least an hour process, and that's just roasting it. That's not scooping everything out and making the puree and letting that chill so that way you can then use it in the pie filling itself, and then all those different things have to chill, and then they all have to bake for an hour each, and then the pies have to cool for forever and a day.
It's the cooling takes the most of it, I mean, honestly. Like, because it's not bad to bake it, but then when you've got to take up counter space to cool the pies and cool them to a point before you can put them in the refrigerator, it becomes a whole thing. But they are way better. I think a lot of people literally buy a crust and buy a can, and they're like, I made a pumpkin pie, and it's like, no, you didn't. It's truly not the same to make it out of a crust in a can than it is to make it from scratch. It is thousands of times better, and you control the seasoning so much better, and it really just makes for an all-around much better pie experience. I'm a big fan of pumpkin pie. I've had a lot of pumpkin pie, but when we've done it this way and actually used real pumpkin, because I think everybody now knows this thanks to news stories and stuff, but because it says pumpkin on the can doesn't actually mean that it's pumpkin. The FDA allows a lot of other things to be put into that, like squash and things, because they're in the same family. They call it pumpkin, even if it's not pumpkin. Now, does the pumpkin change the flavor? I don't know. I haven't done the scientific studies to tell whether or not you can tell a difference between a pumpkin and a squash in a pumpkin pie. But I know that you can tell a difference between can filling and filling that you've made at the house.
Yeah. And me, like, I'm not normally one who just like goes crazy for pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoy the other pies of the seasons much more.
Sugar pies?
Yes.
Pies just full of sugar.
Yes. I mean, how do you think I got this sweet?
Oh, yes.
It's from the pie. Anyways, but the pumpkin pie is really good. And normally as the cook, like, you don't get that feeling of, oh my gosh, this is so much better, because you're putting all the work into it. So like, you just feel a little bit more drained and you can't enjoy it as much normally, at least for me. But this pie is really good. Like, we scarf that down way faster than we should.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's gone fast. But if you eat it fast and you just don't eat more after that, then it's fine.
Yeah, it's the same calories either way. You're either breaking it up or just taking it all in.
It's like spending money. Why wait to spend it if you're going to spend it later anyways? You might as well just do it.
Just do it.
Get it out of the way and be done with it, right? That's the philosophy around here as far as farm things are concerned, right?
Yep.
We've actually said that before. Why are we going to wait to buy something we're going to buy anyways? Just buy it.
Yeah.
But then we did get some farm-ish related stuff done, but we finally stained our fence posts.
Yes.
After
it only took a year.
Yeah, we might be just shy of a year, but we're pretty close to a year to finally having gotten that done.
Mm-hmm.
But we wanted to wait to let the boards dry out, the 4x4s, because they're pressure treated. So you want to let them dry out. That way they'll actually accept the stain and not just cause it to run off like they will water.
Yeah.
So we waited, and finally it actually looks decent. You know, like it didn't look bad before.
But now it looks finished.
Everything matches and it looks finished. It doesn't look just like, you know,
you tossed up a fence.
Plain yellow boards all the way around. And I think it gives a better look. It almost hides it.
Yeah.
Which is kind of neat, which I didn't expect. But
just because that nice dark stain that I picked to match the front post.
Yeah, and it matches the rest of the house, which is nice because it did not before. No, there's some touch-up work that we're going to have to do, but we'll get there. And this only just creates more projects, though, because now we bought caps, and we thought we bought cap. Well, we still think Amazon told us we were buying caps that screwed onto the post.
Yes.
But when they came, they were not designed to be screwed onto the post.
Yeah.
They didn't.
There was no pre-drilled holes.
And they didn't come with screws.
They didn't have screws and all that. It was just you sat it on there. So of course, with wind, they just blew right off every chance they got.
And you said, of course, I didn't see that one coming. Something so small, thin, how the wind was able to blow it off. But some stayed on and some didn't. It was really weird.
And it was all about the locations, too.
Yeah, where they're at.
Yeah. How the wind caught in that area, I guess, kicked it up and popped them off, whatever. So, like, we tried for a while to hunt them down each time and put them back, and we eventually gave up. So there's a ton missing, and next time I'll be a little bit more diligent.
Or we'll just return them if they don't come with the screws.
Yes. Yeah, there's that, too.
Yeah, but then we also got to get new ones for all the gate areas with lights on them, so that way they have a place to go, or so that way we can see where the gate is. Because we bought 4 of them and 2 of them broke, so now we have 1 complete gate, and we need to complete the other gates.
Yeah. So
that way it'll have a nice look. And actually, we didn't do the back gate last time, and it's silly, but I'll probably do that one this time just because. So that way everything
it's right there by the chicken coop and stuff, so like it just makes sense to have that little bit of light there.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. Is like, so those projects come up whenever we finish the fence for real now. But then it's like gets you going on other things, and so I'm like, well, it makes sense if we could kind of, because the shed is right next to the chicken run area.
So why not put a little solar light there?
Yeah, if we could put a solar light there that shines down, like an actual solar like spotlight, motion light. Yeah. As long as it's not going to get triggered, as long as we angle it to get triggered by entering and not by the animals being in there at night. Then
I think as long as we put it in that back corner, facing out, it should be fine.
There's potential for it to kind of, run off potential predators that would get in there, So the light comes on and it can startle.
Thankfully, we've not had any issues with that as of yet, but we will still be due diligent.
No, but and then, so that's the other thing is we've had the talks recently, and you seem somewhat receptive, but I'm going to put you on the spot now, I guess. But we've talked about the idea of a free-ranging bunny in that area, not really free-ranging, but shoring that area up to where we can have a rabbit that just lives in the bottom of that area as its place. Preferably, in my opinion, one of the Flemish giant or continental giant.
Breeds.
One of the not large, no, one of the giant breeds of rabbits. I think would be pretty cool if we could find one and just let it have kind of its own full run in there. Now that means digging a trench around the perimeter and burying some fencing so it can't dig out, and doing a lot of work to make sure that the rabbit can't escape. But that was just an idea that I came up with the other day. I'm like, it'd be kind of neat, and a lot of those bigger.
You dig it out, I'll let you have it.
Yeah, well, a lot of those bigger rabbits they equate to
I
like
had
having
to put
a dog.
in the.
You didn't do all of them.
Chicken area mostly, so.
You did a good portion of them, but you didn't do them all. But you wanted the chickens.
I did, so I did the work.
Yeah.
I got a little assistance, but it'll be the same for you. So you want the free range bunny?
That's fine.
I'll give you a little assistance.
Yeah, but then, so I don't know how it's gonna, like, what its house will be like at night, whether it'll get locked up or like what that deal is gonna be for sure. But having that spotlight could help, keep predators out of the area for that too. But I think that could be kind of neat. We're not set on that, and
No.
if you've got experience in any of that sort of thing, then just let us know, and maybe there's something that we could figure out based on that. Because I think it could be pretty neat to have a rabbit like that, but I'm just not sure what it would look like and how that would all work out and things like that. But if we're able to find one in that situation, then I'm totally down for it. And I mean, but the other thing too, that this week you were saying that you think that you could build one of the rabbit tractors that I showed you, where it has the elevated hutch and all this stuff.
Yeah, but am I willing to spend the money on the lumber?
Well,
currently,
not this week.
No, but
But hopefully in time, and then that would be pretty cool. I really do want the track. Like, we're going to be doing tractors in the spring anyway. So it's just about what design do we want to do, and the type that we saw that has an elevated hutch, so they even have more floor space to move around, but they have a safe place and they can get up out of the rain if that ever comes up. Then I mean, it's a perfect setup and seemed pretty neat and actually fairly simple. But Bree fancies herself as a builder. She thinks.
Listen, I pretty much built that sandbox. Okay.
You did a lot of work. I'm not saying that.
I can do this.
You fancy yourself a carpenter, but you've not done a ton of carpentry work.
But I have confidence in myself and the internet.
Be confident and the internet. There you go. No, but but the rabbits. I've fallen deep into the rabbit hole of rabbits recently. But I just like the idea, and like
there's a chance that he's gonna end up with this free bunny.
Well, yeah, but we got to be quick on that one. I feel like, but
might already be gone.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know, but. The rabbits, and that's what the free bunny thing is. I told her, I said, if we see ones that people were like trying to give up for free online, like as long as we go see them and they seem healthy, like it's not like the feed cost is anything crazy additional per rabbit. You're talking about if you only feed pellets, you're talking about $60 a year. That's hardly anything when you break it out a month. We've got 3 rabbits. Having a couple extra rabbits really wouldn't be that big of a deal. Once the operation goes further and we're able to. Once we've used all the fertilizer that we need to greatly amend the soil, which we'll talk about in a little while, then we'll be able to start selling that fertilizer to other people. That's income. The Angora fur, that's income. And then when we breed some of our other rabbits, that's again income. So all of it could pay for itself and pay to help out these rabbits that don't have a home. Yeah. So I think that could be a good thing.
My only hang up is where are we going to put them? The housing situation, figuring that out. But once that's figured out, then go bunny crazy.
Yeah, but it just means more hutches or more tractors and things. Yeah. But I want to eliminate a good portion of having to get the lawnmower out and do the mowing and different things like that. And so the rabbits could be a pretty great option for doing that and for getting them in a way that they're safe and they're contained and they're fed naturally through natural foods, but also you're getting a service out of them. You're being even more green, right? That's you can't say that a rabbit in a lawn tractor getting moved around on a daily basis isn't way better than even using an electric lawnmower, which I have my issues.
There's no arguing with that. I mean, there's just not.
Yeah. So then, and the rabbits all are going to serve a function. And so if you can help the rabbits get a good home and a good life, and personally, my philosophy on rabbits is a lot different than the I don't even know what to call it, but the overly protective inside rabbit people that you see online that like, there's certain YouTube channels, but I don't want to be that person that calls people out, but they are like intense about, you can't even consider having your rabbits outside and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I have a hard time.
But they live out there.
Yeah. And I know that these are domesticated rabbits, but domesticated anything came from wild animals. Yep. And they're not that far removed when you look at rabbits. And so these rabbits want to be outside. They want fresh air. Fresh air is one of the best things that you can give them, especially letting them be out in the sunshine where they can get vitamin D just like humans do. Like birds, animals, all animals
we all need it.
So it's good for your animals to be outside, but that's another far rabbit trail way off the topic. But maybe we should go ahead and get into what we're actually here to talk about, which was our shocking soil test results, which the test results really were shocking to us. Yeah. There were some things that we expected to see, but then where we saw certain things we didn't expect to see. Yeah. Right. And so we knew that we were going to have acidic soil. And so it's not surprising that we had acidic soil. Yeah. What is surprising is the soil that wasn't acidic. So we have a ton of oak trees. Yes. And a lot of people may not know this, but oak trees put off the acorns. When the acorns decompose, they affect the pH balance of your soil, making your soil more acidic.
Yep.
My understanding of this is that this is a natural defense mechanism for the tree, because the tree can live, an oak tree can live in a wider tolerance of pH balances. So by altering the pH balance and making the soil more acidic, it causes other plant life and other trees to not survive in that area, allowing for more nutrients in the soil to be used for those trees.
Yes.
And so we knew that was part of our problem, and we didn't just know that fact somehow, but we were able to figure that out based on the fact that we don't have grass in large portions of our yard where these trees are.
Through conversations with people who they've been around longer, they're older than us, they know a little bit more things about taking care of taking care of yards and whatnot. And it was he brought that up.
He didn't know about the acorn specifically at that moment, but he knew we have moss in the yard in certain places, and he said that moss is a sign that you have acidic soil. And so he was wondering, why is that? And he was able to do some research and find out that it's the acorns from the oak trees that alters the pH balance of the soil. So we knew that we were going to have areas like that. We kind of wondered if maybe that's why our vegetable plot didn't do as well, is because maybe the soil was too acidic.
Yeah.
And so we looked it up, or we finally got the soil test. We finally did the soil test, and we do the vegetable garden, and it comes back neutral.
Yep. And
we're like, well, that was unexpected.
Yes.
Even more unexpected than that, we have a garden bed in the front of our yard around our mailbox.
That we've kind of just established out of nowhere. Like the owners, before the people we bought it from, on the road view looked like they had some sort of garden there, but we have created this since we've
I think it had been a bed, but it was just different than how we have it now.
Yeah.
But it was a defined area still whenever we moved here. But I don't even know how to describe it now. My mind's going blank. But we expected there to be high acidic there because the oak tree is a stone's throw from it. I mean, it's just right there. And then there's another oak tree not too far away. And so we assumed the acorns were getting into that bed as well and doing the same thing. And we test it, and it comes back neutral.
Yeah.
But you've been thinking well, maybe you tested it wrong because you did an at-home test. Well, we go to the middle where the moss is in the middle of the yard, and we do the soil test there, and it is acidic.
Yeah.
Not crazy acidic. I think it was at 6.5 pH.
But we had already tried to amend the soil a little bit over this year. You'd put out some lime and stuff. Yeah. So I believe that helped in the process.
Yeah, probably raised it a little bit.
Now we're into fall and acorns are falling.
Yeah. But so the front bed didn't have it. And so now we know, I didn't even have to go around and test literally everything because it started to become apparent. You can tell, okay, this soil is going to be like this and that's going to be like that. But then there was the test to get the potash and the phosphorus and the nitrogen that was in the soil. And so those tests were actually a lot more complicated. The acid test is easy.
Yeah.
The other one's a little bit harder, but we did those tests as well, and our vegetable garden showed up with nothing.
No nutrients.
Nothing at all. And that really was shocking to me because we didn't just... So to build the bed, it was an area of grass.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, there's a whole lot of methods that you can do. We chose to remove the sod because we actually needed it in other places in the yard, and we're able to transport it, and it took, which was nice.
Woohoo!
But we had to move that. We moved all that soil from a 30 by 4 bed. We removed all of this sod.
Shovelful by shovelful.
Yep. Moved it to another area of the yard. And then we came back in and we put compost manure in it.
We put worm castings in it.
And garden soil.
We put different fertilizers on it during the growing season.
Yeah, we even put bone meal in it, which did have an effect on our plants.
Yes, that helped them a lot.
But we actually, at one point, we thought that we had too much nitrogen in the soil. And that's why
we just didn't have none.
And so that's why we didn't want to add more compost while our plants weren't producing, because from what we're looking online, we're like, well, maybe this is too rich. And so we had to figure that out. And and then it turns out that, no, wait, we don't have any nutrients in this soil like at all. Which looking back now, like it's not too surprising. Now, we added a lot, I feel like, at least. But it was like the nutrients erased almost instantly. Like they were just gone. The soil went back to just being a light brown. super fast, like what we had before. Now, if you know anything about soil, rich soil, nutrient-filled soil is almost black.
Yeah.
And so this soil was almost, I don't even know how to describe it, like super light brown, dusty soil, sandy-ish type soil when you actually got it broke up in your hand.
Yeah.
And there's just no nutrients in it. And it's almost like everything that we put in there just got washed out or sucked out.
Yeah, the plants just used it right up, and then it's all good.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I guess we should have done the soil test before.
Yeah.
Or we should have added even more stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Like I don't have like a great answer to that. We should have established the bed in the spring.
Yeah.
With a whole bunch of compost, or fall, I mean. We should have established the bed in the fall, but we actually started building it in like February.
Yeah.
Because we live in East Tennessee, and so seasons exist, but they're not normal. Yeah. And so even though it's winter, all of a sudden it'll be like 70 degrees and decent outside. And so you're like, well, let's just get some work done. And then you establish the bed, get everything ready before planting.
And then it snows.
So you're like, that's just what our life is like here in Tennessee. But it was just all the nutrients seemed to just exist or non-exist. You know, like they just were gone. And so now we've had to come up with a whole plan to figure out like what are we going to do to make this better.
Yeah. And like one of the things that we had talked about in a previous podcast was we're hoping to get some wood chips from Chip Drop, the website where they connect with local arborists, or however you say that, and they get all the chips that they would get from taking down a tree or whatever, and they have to pay to go dump somewhere, or they could just bring it to your house. We had wanted to do that because then that would put a lot of good nutrients into the soil and help retain the water, and they'd break down over time, and then it's free to us, or a $20 donation type thing, and they'll just keep bringing it to you as long as you're signed up. But we've not gotten anything from that yet, so I mean, we've not really had any storms or anything to need trees brought.
It's kind of a weird time of year, I guess, to be doing that. And we've not given up hope yet. But we're getting to a point where, like, you need to get the bed dressed for winter.
We want to correct everything now so that way, hopefully when January comes, I can plant some potatoes or something somewhere. Yeah. Because I really want to do that. I'm so excited. To do it.
No, it's going to be fun, but we got to get the soil figured out. And so we had to figure out another solution for mulch, because I think that's, as far as our plans are concerned, that mulch is like one of the key components in some way. Yeah. And so we don't want to pay for wood mulch because it's expensive.
Yeah. And like then, with as much as that we're going to need to help amend areas, like.
I hate to sound like a wuss, but like we use our truck for farm related work stuff, but it's also a newer truck. Yeah. And I have a hard time with the idea of letting some guy that I don't know lift a bucket on a heavy piece of machinery over the bed of my truck and shake things into the back of it, because there's so many.
And hope it doesn't scratch as it's falling in.
Or like that they don't hit the truck or something. Like I just have a hard time trusting that. Yeah. And so I really want a farm truck, and maybe we'll get there at some point. But I don't like the idea of the new truck. I mean, it's a 2017. We did buy it new. We were blessed, but we didn't, I don't still, even though 5 years later, I don't want to be pouring things into the back of it like that. Like it just doesn't make me feel comfortable. Yeah. And so we're not going to be like wanting to pay a bunch of money for chips. The reason we looked into Chip Drop is because it's free, or at least a minimal donation for basically an insane.
It's an optional donation too. It's just like.
Yeah, which is a nice thing to do, but it's an insane amount of wood chips like, to get. And so that was why we went that way. But so another thing that we have an insane amount of, due to our small yard having, I think, 9 massive oak trees in it.
Yeah, I'd say there's about 9.
Is leaves.
And that's just in the yard. That's not counting our little wooded section in between us and the neighbor.
Yeah, just in the yard alone. Not in the woods, but in the yard, spread out. We have 9 oak trees. Kind of, some are on the perimeter. Yeah. But like there are at least 5 in the main yard just spread out.
So that means leaves, and more leaves. And you know what you can do with leaves? Run them over with the lawnmower and make mulch out of them.
Yeah. And it actually takes a surprisingly lot amount. So we actually started working on one of the beds today that we're not going to put as much fertilizer in, just because we don't want to use all of our fertilizer in that bed. We'd rather use it in the vegetable garden bed. And it's taking a lot of leaves. Like it's a surprisingly a large amount of leaves that it takes to mulch with. But
The front yard is cleared. It
Yeah.
took that many.
But it's a whole thing. But we're trying to put as many leaves into that first bed as we can just to figure it out because we actually want like a couple inches of leaves in there.
Preferably.
Once you wet them, they don't move around a whole lot, which is nice. But no, we have tons of leaves, and there's still tons of leaves on the trees, even though it's been cold here. Like we had cold nights.
It's been cold. It's been windy.
It's rained.
It's rained.
But most trees, besides oak trees, have already lost all of their leaves.
But oak trees are resilient. They're going to hold on and keep dropping leaves until the new ones come.
Yeah. But the leaves act as a good mulch. They break down quickly, quicker than wood chips, actually.
Yeah.
Some videos that I watched, they put the leaves down. And this guy didn't even mulch them. He just put them down, and it takes longer to break them down when you don't mulch them. And he put them down, and by June, he put them down in the fall, like in November, and by June, he had dirt. Like you couldn't even tell it. Like when he picks it up, like it doesn't even look like leaves hardly anymore because they've almost all broken down. And that's just putting the nutrients that the tree used right back into the soil. Hence why you go in the woods and there's leaves everywhere. Like it's actually a part of the ecosystem. It has a purpose into the soil. But so that we're hoping to use the leaves. We're going to mow them up into the garden bed and try to use as many of them as we can to make a nice layer of mulch on the top of the thing. Now, there is some key things about leaves that I found that are pretty interesting. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, leaves are good for the soil. Maybe we should like plow some leaves into the soil, into the dirt, and that way they'll break down faster because they're going to have all that on there.
In there.
And then they're going to have nutrients like in there, right? Well, yes. But doing that, apparently, the leaves will rob the nitrogen from the soil in their decomposing process. And so when they do that, now your soil is in the same boat that we're already in. We don't even have nitrogen right now to rob, apparently, according to the soil test that we did. So we don't want to do that. That's the last thing that we want, right? And so we're hoping to use the leaves to put them in there. You can use whole leaves. And so we may have some whole leaves on top, just depending on how things fall, because we have leaves fall all the way into the spring because of these oak trees. But the hope is to mulch up as many of them as we can and have them on there. The easiest solution, which we're just not willing to put the money down on right now, is having a mulching lawnmower. So you just mow all the leaves up into the bag, and then you just dump the bag wherever you want the leaves. Problem solved. But you're talking about spending a few $100s right now that with just a little bit of extra work by mowing again and again and again and blowing leaves, so we can accomplish.
And especially by the holiday season. I mean, maybe like when spring starts to roll around again, like we'll talk about it in preparation, or just as summer ends, as we're going into fall, maybe that's just something that we budget for type thing.
Or if we see something go on sale right now, like a good sale, like if the
Black Friday is coming up.
The Ryobi one interests me, and it is electric, and I have a problem with batteries and all that stuff. But at the same time, I like the idea of that one because it's just lightweight and easy. So, and not loud. And so I've thought about getting that one, but it'd have to be a pretty good sale. Like if it's like $100 off of it, then I'll probably be like, sure. And it'll have the bagger, and then that'll save us a lot of work. But if you have a bagging lawnmower, don't throw away your leaves. And the amount of videos that I've had come up about leaves are just insane. Do you remember any of like the nutritional, like what it does?
So leaves are a carbon source. That's the main thing that was talked about in this video that I watched today, to where you are going to need some nitrogen to balance out things. And we've got a plan to put some other nutrients back into the soil besides just doing the leaves. But it ends up making the area that you've mulched with the leaves like a mini compost pile. So you're able to get all that goodness from the leaves decomposing, from the additional fertilizers that you put in there, and all that back into your soil. And then come springtime, when you till up the area and get to planting, bam.
Yeah. And my thought too is if the wood chips do show up, then we can put a layer of compost down on the leaves and then just put wood chips over that. And that should even advance another level of decomposition. Shouldn't do too much to rob nitrogen because you're composting them at that point with the compost on top. And hopefully that will break down quicker. and you'll still have your wood chips that'll help you out through the rest of the season. Because the reason we wanted the wood chips is because they actually help you not just in the fact that they break down over time and enrich the soil, but they also require you to water less and things like that. And the leaves, I'm not sure will give you that same benefit.
Yeah. And with wood chips, like it'll protect your crop from like the soil. So you get a cleaner crop when you go to harvest. So that makes things nice. It just keeps things a little tidier and whatnot. So if it happens, it happens. If not, we have a plan.
Yeah, and then mulching's not the only thing that you can do with the leaves, and so there's a couple other options that I was considering until this afternoon when I realized, wow, this is going to take a lot of leaves to mulch as many beds as we have. Yeah, we have, I don't know, like 5 garden beds, more than that, maybe 6. If you think about all the way around the house. And we'd like to mulch all of them and get all of them performing, because even if they're not going to have vegetables in them, like we want to have flower gardens and have things look nice when people come over. And it'd be great to be able to have cutting gardens where we're able to do things with flowers and stuff like that.
That's the dream.
But so I had a few other ideas for using the leaves, but if we try to mulch everything, then we're not going to have enough space. And we really want to leave a bunch of them in our backyard. Yeah. Because we're getting to the point where like there's so much erosion in the backyard due to the fact that there's no grass back there, that it's just all rock.
Almost. It's rock. Like it's like someone dumped a big bucket of gravel in like this whole section.
I still need to do the soil test back there to get the pH balance just to see, because I have to imagine that it's even more acidic back there than it is anywhere else in the yard. So I'm going to lime it soon. I try to time that with rain. But I'm going to put lime down in that and amongst other garden beds and on the ones that need it. Yeah. And put a bunch back there so that way hopefully everything will kind of be back to normal, because we don't really want grass per se. Yeah. Because grass isn't really great for the environment. And I really like clover, even though it's maybe not the most natural thing. But the bees love white clover. Well, the animals love white clover. If I can plant white clover.
Clover is pretty natural though. I mean,
I don't know if it's super native to the area from things that I've read online. I mean, natural might not be the right word for it. And grass is natural. Yeah. But I'm not sure it's the most native thing. But if I could do white clover, just instead of having any grass, I would do that. Because when the bees are around, it draws bees in like you would with your cutting garden, with your flowers.
So. I mean, I guess to me, like I always think of it as a native thing, because I grew up on Old Clover Hill Road.
I don't know whether it is or not. I feel like some people argue back and forth on what and maybe it's just different types of clover, white clover, because I think it's like white Dutch clover or something like, or Dutch white clover, something like that. But it's everywhere. I mean, it's all around East Tennessee already, so it's not like we're putting in an invasive species.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the texture of it in the yard, because we have a couple areas where it's pretty prominent from some past work we've done, and just from it being natural. I like the texture that it gives.
We did one section where we were able to get it to grow in, and we really like that. So I like it just to be throughout the whole yard. And it's also, it doesn't grow very tall. The rabbits will eat it, and it attracts bees. So I mean, all around, it's a very good thing. And it actually stays green all throughout the wintertime. Like, it's got way more benefits, in my opinion, than grass does. So I would much rather have the clover personally. Yeah. But that's all personal preference. I mean, sometimes the little white balls do get annoying whenever you get through like the summer, and it's like, I just want to have it be green, not white everywhere. But the benefits outweigh that. So. Yeah. But anyways, we don't want grass, but we'd like to leave some of the leaves back there. But then there's leaf mold, which I've read some about, or not read, but watched some videos about. And so you actually like take a garbage bag full of leaves, get them wet, and poke holes in the bag. And it creates something called leaf mold, which is supposed to be great in your garden to be like a top layer once you've planted. Oh. And it puts nutrients back in the soil. So I was thinking like it might be a fun thing to try. But at this point, I'm like, maybe even with all these trees, we may not have enough leaves. Because I was thinking like, man, it's crazy to me in our situation. I know that now every suburban yard, like, because we don't really live in suburbia. No. Right? We live in like an old neighborhood.
We're in the city, but like this isn't.
I wouldn't consider it suburban by any means. But there's people that live in areas where you only have like a tree in your yard. So people were going around like getting leaves from other people. And I'm like, how we wouldn't even have to consider that. And then I'm like, wow, maybe that is something you'd almost have to consider even for us with all these trees. Because
we just go knock on the neighbor's house like, hey, don't call for the truck this week.
Yeah, we'll take care of those leaves for you. But yeah, so those are kind of the thoughts that we want to do with leaves and the mulch and to do that. But then also, fertilizing,
yes.
obviously, is going to be a big part of it. And so I kind of don't want to use bagged fertilizer after certain things that have come out this year. Like, we still aren't sure if the fertilizer we got was tainted or not. It seems a little iffy. Like, I know we got bad soil, but some stuff just like died.
Yeah.
And it was in areas that apparently aren't acidic. So kind of bizarre.
Makes you question things.
Yeah. And then if you've watched certain YouTubers like Roots and Refuge, they went through that whole thing, and like she did a whole big thing.
A high tunnel.
Yeah.
Of food just gone because of the soil, and she's worked very hard to amend that.
Yeah. And so I don't really want to go through that again, but we have the rabbits, we have chickens, and we have quail.
Yes.
All of which are producing manure at a fast rate. Obviously, if you know things about manure, the rabbits are the best because they have, more nitrogen and phosphorus than any other animal when they do theirs. And you can use it instantly. There's no curing process. Yeah. And so we save as much of that as we can to use in the garden. Right now we have like 2 buckets full of not just rabbit manure, but also the chicken and the quail stuff. And what's interesting about the quail is that we moved them into the full run, like we talked about in a previous episode. But then once we moved them, we found some of it underneath there, and we started digging up like just rich soil.
Yes. And
putting that in other areas. Well, while I was staying in the fence Saturday, I ended up going out there, and I was on the back side of the fence, and I found tons of it. And so I got a ton of that quail manure, quail compost, I guess at this point. Has no smell, because that's, if you have good compost, it doesn't have a smell. Yeah. That's how you know that it's right. And so now we've got like a great mixture of that. And by the time we get ready to do the bed, we'll probably have even more. So I'm really happy about that. And we're going to use basically all of that we can on the vegetable garden bed.
Yes. That's the main focus for that.
Yeah. And we also did buy some worm castings or worm compost or vermicompost, whatever you want to call it. But basically, we bought a bag full of worm manure. I guess
as Oliver calls it, worm poop.
Yes. And so we bought a big bag of that because it's supposed to be great. And so amending as much soil as we're trying to, we're going to try to put a bunch of that down and get that worked into the soil. The hope is to do the worm farm at some point and to make our own, but we just haven't got there. So that's like the big compost solution. Like, feeding table scraps to the animals is one thing, but you can't feed certain things to them. Yeah. Apparently they don't like pumpkin, which has shocked me.
Ours are picky.
They like the intestines of the pumpkin. Yeah. Like the chickens did.
They didn't like the flesh.
But nobody wanted to eat the meat or the flesh of the pumpkin, which was kind of weird. But the worms don't care. Yeah. They're not going to care. You slice that up and throw it in there, and they're going to eat it like it's, their favorite thing ever. And then that's the other thing is like fruits. We can't really give many fruit pills to the other animals. Like, you can't give a banana pill. You just got to
be careful with fruits in general, because you don't want to give them too much, because then it'll cause runny stool and like digestive problems. And then you have to be careful about like nightshade stuff. They can't have the leaves, and
there's just certain things that you can't actually feed your animals unless maybe you have like pigs. But you can't feed these animals certain things. But the worms can eat it and make it to super rich compost. And then a lot of people like to make compost tea out of that, which is all that gets you that super rich water to apply directly to the plants. And so I'm kind of curious, like, if we should make some of the the casting tea and then pour that over the soil we already have, or just put the castings down straight into the soil. I'm kind of debating.
We have a couple areas, so I mean, we could test it both ways. Yeah, we don't have to stick with one plan.
That's true.
So I mean, we'll definitely put it into the vegetable garden, but we've got flower beds and stuff that need some help and assistance. The tea can be poured
over the leaves, and it'll still leach in the soil, so that can be added throughout the fall. Throughout the fall and winter to keep amending the soil that we can't even see. So that's a good thing.
We don't have to just pick one. We can do multiple things.
Yeah, but I'm just weary of the store bought, like buying it at Home Depot type compost, just because that freaks me out now. And what it is. And I think we kind of alluded to it, but maybe if you didn't listen to that episode, is they're treating the hay that the cows eat with pesticides and even like chemical weed control. And what that does is, like, it doesn't get digested when the cow eats it.
So it passes right back out.
Exactly. It passes straight through the cow into the manure, and then it takes a long time for that to just die off. And so when you buy that manure and put it in to your garden,
you're now introducing those pesticides and
like basically
herbicides
Roundup.
and yep.
And so a lot of they've chemically engineered the Roundup to not affect straw and wheat, but to still kill other weeds.
Yeah.
But they haven't engineered it to not kill tomato plants and other things like that. And so there's a lot of people that are having issues from that sort of thing right now.
Yep.
And that's just not another risk that I want to take on our scale, especially like well, if you had a huge scale, I especially get it. But on a scale where like you're trying to save money, you're trying to be as affordable as possible, and then you ruin your one bed with this stuff. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Like this is our chance at being able to grow vegetables. Like I'm not risking that.
Yeah, I don't have multiple plantings in multiple areas where I can buy from this person here and buy from that there. Like, no, we just got to do our own thing pretty much. And even if you're buying, I've heard of a horse barn near us that'll sell you just like straight horse manure. But at the same time, like, one, you got to let that age somewhere, unless they're aging it, I'm not sure. But you've got to trust that what they've been feeding their animal isn't getting sprayed with chemicals. And so you've really got to track down where this stuff is coming from and where the animals are getting fed. And that's becoming a more and more prevalent thing now. So
we've engineered and changed things so much and got it so far away from how God made it and He intended it to be, that like a lot of people are realizing, man, all this stuff, it's not good.
Yeah.
And they're going back to how it was intended to be.
That's what I really like about the rabbits. Like, all the animals obviously produce manure, but the fact that rabbits help a gardener so much, and the fact that they eat basically any vegetable type things. Now, you have to be careful with acidic things. You can't feed them too much of that because they could get ulcers just like a person could. But you can feed them so many things from your vegetable garden, even in some cases the plants. And then they're going to produce a high quality fertilizer that doesn't smell. So you can store it right on your front porch, right outside your front door if you want to. You're never going to smell it. And you can just go dump it right in the flower beds. And you're taking scraps and getting rich fertilizer that you know where it came from. You just can't beat that.
No.
And so that's why rabbits have become more and more one of my favorite animals, and like why I'm probably going to be championing rabbits more and more through the podcast and other ventures that we do on the farm. I think rabbits are like God's miracle animal for people trying to self-sustain, and that goes into even meat and other things too. Like they're great animals that survive, that give a great purpose, and if we use them in, if we take care of them well, they'll take care of us well. Like we can have a symbiotic relationship with these animals and work together for each other's good. And I think that's really cool. But then another thing that we've read about, that's kind of our fertilizer plan, is to use whatever we have of our own to fertilize the garden the best that we can. Obviously, we won't be able to do all of our beds, but we're going to focus on the vegetable bed first. That way we can, have food. Food versus flowers, we're going to choose the food first. We obviously need flowers for pollinators, but
you can stick some flowers in the vegetable garden to bring in pollinators. Like we don't have to.
Which is what we did last year.
We don't have to have a dedicated space, but hopefully we'll get some raised beds this year, and I can have one dedicated for flowers.
Yeah, we definitely want to do the raised beds for sure, and we're going to get there. But the other thing that we want to consider trying, which I just found out about today, and I kind of had considered it, but I didn't really know how viable it was, but it's like direct composting, where you just take your kitchen scraps and you bury them in the garden in an area. And so because our soil is so bad and we want to try to get the best soil that we possibly can in the quickest way possible, we're really going to consider that. And we're just going to try to dig like basically the 2 rows that we would use. And trench those out and just take a bucket and go as far as we can with whatever table scraps we're able to gather. I'd like to get the bed done like almost as soon as possible, get it dressed in and, ready. But I'm not sure when that's going to be. So until that time, we're going to just save even stuff that we would normally have given to the chickens or the rabbits. We're going to save in a bucket and just fill that bucket all the way up as far as we can. And then we're going to do that trench and bury that stuff in there, cover that up, put the fertilizers down, and then put the leaves on top of that and go from there.
We're praying for a good harvest this year, and hopefully all this work that we're putting into it will help us get there.
But the one people that I was seeing, like, they would actually dig a hole and do the direct composting just in that hole where they planned on, planting things that require a lot of nutrients. And it seems to work, and a lot of people do it. And you're not going to get any smell, or environments aren't going to come dig up things like that. And so it makes sense as a way to compost, but I probably never would have thought to do it without seeing somebody else do it.
Yeah, like I would have never thought of direct composting. Like you always see stuff about composting bins and that type stuff, but never anyone just directly putting the stuff into the ground.
I think it's because it takes a while, in the sense of like you've got to do it now in order to be ready by like April, May when we'll actually be planting. So you have those several months for the soil to actually break down. But the good thing too is that by doing it this way, when you just put fertilizer down and like even natural compost and things like that, when you put those down into the soil, they don't really attract worms. Yeah. Because worms don't eat dirt that's already been made. They help make a lot of compost, right? And so they don't want what's already been processed. So if you put the vegetables in there, you could actually draw worms into that bed, which is only going to help you even more because it's going to aerate.
Which it should have been assigned to us when we were digging out the vegetable garden that there weren't really any worms. Yeah. Like that maybe we should hold up and do a test. But like thinking back on it, like
we found some worms underneath the ground.
But it wasn't. Yeah. It wasn't like you go to a good area and there's going to be worms. Yeah. It was very far and few between.
That did remind me, and this is a cool thing that I've seen, and we probably won't be doing it anytime soon, but I've actually seen compost bins that you bury in the garden. And so it's like you dig out the hole and you put this bin in there, and that's where you put all your food scraps, and the worms will actually come in.
Oh, like you put holes in the bin, like, or it's already got.
It's like I've seen pre-made ones, but you could make one, but you have holes in it, and so the worms can transfer in between that and then out into the garden. Yeah. And so they're coming in there eating and producing compost, but their compost is obviously worm poop. Yep. And so when they come in and eat that, they don't just relieve themselves there; they may carry some of that out into the garden, but they're also traveling through your garden bed, and so by doing that. They're aerating your soil, which is allowing your plants to get more oxygen, to breathe better. And so, like, it's kind of that same thing on a little bit different of a scale. Yeah. And now that I'm thinking about it, like, it would be kind of cool if you to do that in the garden bed that we have, because you could measure, like, directly in the middle and put something in there, either where it's pre-made or something that we make ourselves. Yeah. It has those holes in it, and then they could go either direction. And be able to take care of, a good portion of the bed. And then they're breeding worms. And worms are always really good for your garden bed. I mean, that's just that simple.
I mean, my only concern with that would be it's taking up space for planting.
Well, if we have the raised beds.
Yeah. If we have the raised beds, which that's a plan. I got some pallets to break down and build some stuff.
We've got a ton of wood in the shed that we need to go through, because I think that there's some stuff that I think we could use, even if we don't want to use it for food, we could use it for flowers. So. Yeah. But I think like my idea with that is more of like, if we fall into the YouTube like we hope to, is that's like a scientific thing. It's like, how does this work and is it good? Because I've seen people do it, but it's normally like a kit. And so like it's normally a raised bed type kit too. And I've seen some that are in the ground. But it'd be neat to try it in the middle, especially like that, and just to see like the difference that it makes in the garden bed. I bet it would make a pretty big difference. Yeah. But doing the direct composting is kind of doing that ahead of time. But you wouldn't want to go out and just constantly be digging a hole in your garden and burying things, because you could mess up your root system. Yeah. So you don't want to do that. It's like a one-time thing. But no, I think that we're going to try that. And so combining all those things together, if we put all of our focus on the vegetable garden, we use our personal fertilizer, we mulch it, and then we do the direct composting. I think that we've got a pretty good chance of getting the soil mended more than anything else. But it's going to take work. Yeah, it's going to take work. That's just and it's everywhere. If you like look at these different people that are doing this stuff, it's not like they just plow the land and plant things. Like it takes work. You've got to amend the soil, and I mean, we could do, but it would require so much more compost than we have currently. But like the whole no dig thing is a big thing nowadays, where you basically, like some people just take the grass like we had, put cardboard down, then a bunch of compost. I think it's like 3 to 4 inches of compost, and then 3 to 4 inches of wood chips. Have this massive bed that's above the ground. Basically, it's like a formed raised bed with no like hard sides.
Yeah,
but we could try that, but it would require so much compost, and I don't feel comfortable, as we've already stated, purchasing. And so, like, that's why we're not probably going to go that method.
Yeah.
Currently, you know, there's probably a way in the future you could get me there, but
yeah, we'll still have to figure out what we're going to do about filling for the raised beds and whatnot.
I'm going to buy soil. I'm going to try to buy the best raised bed soil that we can. Something that hopefully says organic on it and means it. And just try and hope that we get something decent. But
we can, I'm sure with all the wealth of knowledge out there on the internet and all the people doing all the stuff, that someone out there can tell you a raised bed mix that's relatively safe.
Yeah, I'm sure that it exists, but it still makes me nervous now. But who knows? I mean, you just got to take the risk and go for it. And then if the soil doesn't work out, then you just work to amend it, right?
Yeah.
And so we can be putting stuff on it all year long. But we didn't have all the animals like we do now and all the setups like we do now whenever we had that bed, and then we didn't have the soil test. And so, like, it's a whole learning process, and we've definitely learned a lot in the last year on, like, what we need to do to make the best soil possible for what we're trying to do. I do want to say, a part of that no-dig method with the cardboard, that kind of mind warps me a little bit, because they're saying, like, you know, use the boxes and things. And I'm like, even if you get a box that doesn't have ink, which I don't know where you get a box that has no ink, because even if you go buy the generic boxes at like the office store,
there's ink on them that says
printed on
name,
them.
What's in here.
Yeah, or like it just it might have a barcode on it somewhere. Like there's going to be some level of ink, but then like there's still so much in that process that's not organic that I feel weird putting that even at the bottom of the soil that I'm about to use.
Because roots go down.
Yeah. Like leaves. You could put leaves because it's just building carbon. Yeah. And that's why they're using cardboard. So I feel weird about the cardboard thing personally. I know a lot of people do it, and a lot of organic farmers use the cardboard thing, but it feels weird to me to use a heavily processed material such as cardboard. I've never seen a cardboard tree. Yeah. In growing. I guess I've seen cardboard, like people made trees out of cardboard. But I've never seen the tree that you just go cut and it's a cardboard tree that's got life out and roots and things like that. No, this is still heavily manufactured stuff. And I don't feel like if I'm going to try to grow the best crops and not use chemicals on it, that I want to put chemicals in the composition of my soil like that. That's just, and maybe the thought is that you're putting it in the fall, and by spring all the chemicals have leached away. Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the mindset is. I mean, obviously we do have our own hypocrisy here because of the way that our flower bed is right attached to our driveway, where our vegetable garden bed is. And obviously that means that there's going to be chemicals from vehicles. Yeah. But we don't really have an option because even if we didn't have it connected to the driveway, our driveway and our yard are right there. There's not that much yard space. So there's chemicals getting in there either way, I guess. So, but try to limit that as much as possible.
Yeah, and that's the best sun and all that. Like, we just don't really have an option for our layout to do it anywhere else. Like the backyard, no, you can't do it. Like, one, the trees, there's too much shade coverage. Two, the rocks, like it's just not possible. So that was our option. Yeah. And thankfully we don't just go out there and sit and run the cars.
No, it's more of like when it rains and the runoff stuff. But I mean, you just got to do what you can do, and it's still going to be better than stuff that you're buying at the store. Yep. So, I mean, that's really what it's about. Like, I like to just be able to grow things. So.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed what little bit we did get from the garden this last year. And even our friend Emily, who partook in some of it, she just absolutely loved it.
I'll be honest, and maybe this is how other people feel, but I had a hard time enjoying what we did get because we put so much work and time in, and we had so many plants, and our yield was so low that it was kind of depressing. Yeah. And so it was hard for me to be excited about some of the stuff when, like, we never got a real Cherokee purple. No. We really didn't get some of the fun things that I was excited about.
We didn't the fun stuff that we were really excited about, it didn't really happen. Like we had these rainbow bell peppers, like they were green or they were orange. That was it.
Yeah.
Like nothing, the soil just wasn't good enough to allow it to do what it was supposed to do. Our Cherokee purple, I guess, got cross-pollinated with the others and it wasn't Cherokee purple. Like it got mixed.
Yeah, we need to pare down. I think this year too. I think we went a little too broad and tried to have like all these different things, and it needs to be like we'll just have a mess of this kind of tomato, this kind of bell pepper, and just be very generic until we have the space to have like certain beds set
like
up
have our pepper bed.
Yeah.
Or at least like here's our fun peppers and tomatoes. Here's our basics type thing. Because depending on spicy levels or whatever, because we don't really go too crazy with our spices. And ever since we discovered the jalapeno, I don't know that we'll actually.
Yeah, the jalapeno. Like I like spicy things, but also like I like to be able to eat the food and not have to like. I don't want to sweat or like get the hiccups or all these things. And so you eat a jalapeno and you're like, this is a game changer because it really truly tastes. I realize that it's a GMO, like it's been messed with or something probably, or like weird genetics, something weird about that. But it truly tastes just like a jalapeno
without the heat.
It's like eating a jalapeno flavored bell pepper, but it's the shape and look of a jalapeno. Like it would really confuse you, or you think like, man, this is a dull jalapeno.
Yeah.
But I like it because of that. Personally.
That way you can cut it up fresh and sprinkle it on your nachos.
And you get the flavor. I mean, like I like a jalapeno's flavor, but sometimes that spice can get me. And now that I've got the reflux, I don't even do raw jalapeno anymore.
Yeah. The only time you get it is in salsa. But it's normally pretty mild. Yeah.
Well, and then you take
all the other flavors that I've put in there.
Yeah.
So. But yeah.
So that's our shocking soil results. Like we really didn't expect to have 0 nutrients in every single bed. And that's even beds that have like the black store-bought mulch on them have no nutrients. And the vegetable bed that we poured, like we've said, tons of what we thought
heart and soul into.
Well, but tons of what we thought were nutrients that just somehow vanished. Yeah. And this is after we had plants, so maybe we had a little bit more in there in the season, but we still didn't have enough to have abundance. And so
maybe just by the time we took all the plants out, it was just gone.
Yeah. So hopefully, with our plan this year, we'll be able to have abundant crops. Things will get the nutrients that they need. And we'll actually be able to see the impact of what we're doing on those plants, which I'm pretty excited about. If you have any suggestions, if you think that we're doing something completely crazy that's actually going to make our soil worse than it was before,
please tell us.
Yes, let us know so that way we don't make a mistake before it's too late. Obviously, any of these things can easily be corrected.
Yes.
But it's better to find out before we do it and not have to correct it than it is to try to correct it later. Hopefully you found something good out of this. Maybe you heard some ideas that you've not thought of before. I know that I've definitely learned a lot in the last little bit, looking at different ways to do it. Honestly, I'd already started getting rid of leaves this year because I'm like, I just need these out of my yard because I didn't want them to kill the what little bit of grass that I had. And then you start doing more research and you're like, oh, wait, I can heavily utilize these as a farmer. I didn't even realize all the benefits that these leaves can add to my soil. Yeah. And so, I mean, that alone.
We're going to have an abundance of leaves, so why not?
So hopefully an abundance of leaves will lead to an abundance of crops. But, that's just only something that time is going to tell. I think that's going to do it for today's podcast, though. I think we really covered everything we want to. So as always, we're going to finish out with a Bible verse. And today that comes from Psalms 19:7. The instructions of the Lord are perfect, reviving the soul. The decrees of the Lord are trustworthy, making wise the simple. I know that I need God to make me wise as far as apparently soil is concerned because I'm very simple in that area. But I think that through some prayer and study, we're going to be able to get somewhere that's going to help us have abundant crops. Because I think that's something that God kind of has wanted us to do is to cultivate the land. That's what He put us on here originally to do. And even after sin, that's not what He took away. He just made it a little bit harder.
Yep.
So Now we have to actually put in some real effort to get the soil to do what we need it to do to provide. But I think that we're going to get there, and I'm really looking forward to this season and figure out what next spring is going to be like.
Yes, all the crops.
Yes. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and God bless.
God bless.